I got to talk. I got to tell what I feel. I got to talk about my life as I see it. Biggie.
Tariq,
What's man?
how you doing, mate?
Good, very good. Thank you very much for having me, Dan.
Yeah, nice one. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Always a pleasure, man.
Just for like anyone who's listening, just a quick brief, just who you are and where you come from, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. A bit of an interesting background, I guess. My name's Tariq Abdulrahman. I moved to the Sunshine Coast, beautiful Sunshine Coast, about 4 years ago from Bahrain, where my dad is from, and my mum's from Scotland, which is where I grew up. I am currently the ex-head coach of Sunshine Coast Boxing Club. I had the opportunity to run a great club with a great few people. Until COVID hit, it was a wonderful place to be. Recently moved to the city. Third vice president of Boxing British Columbia. I serve the interests of the members of Boxing BC and do my best to promote the interests of the members of Boxing BC. I'm also a competitive coach for amateurs and pros. And I love coaching non-competitives, a bit of boxing for some fitness and for some fun.
Nice, mate. So some intro.
Yeah.
So just like going right back to the beginning, like where you grew up. So you grew up in Scotland, is that right?
Yeah.
Were you born in Scotland?
No, I wasn't. No, I was born in Bahrain and I moved to Scotland when I was about probably 11, 12 years old. I've been to Scotland loads, obviously over the summers and Christmases and whatnot to see my mum's family. I moved to Scotland, the west coast of Scotland, just in a little town just outside Ayr on the west coast, to live with my auntie and uncle. I grew up kind of in a different environment to what I was used to in Bahrain, which is a Middle Eastern country. It's very small, insulated, a bit of a bubble, very, very safe place, to go into the west of Scotland, which is just a little bit colder and a wee bit rougher. So
Yeah.
Contrast.
And what was it like for you, obviously, growing up in Scotland?
It's an interesting question, actually. I mean, going and visiting for summers and Christmases and whatnot was always fun, and it was very, very different when I went to live there and went to school there and interacted in a different way. It was very hard initially, being away from my family as well. I was living with my auntie and uncle, who they were great people. I had a great household relationship with everybody. I was very loved and whatnot, but it was a wee bit rough. It's not very multicultural. It's not very multi-ethnic. So like being in a place that maybe don't know where people from Bahrain are from, or don't understand other cultures, etc. and so forth, is a little bit tough. So I kind of had to grow up and toughen up a little bit quicker than I probably would have liked to.
Yeah, Scotland's definitely a place for toughening up.
It is indeed, man. Yeah.
Is that where you started boxing in Scotland?
Yeah, I started a bit of boxing when I was a kid. Confidence, anti-bullying and whatnot. I remember my uncle taking me down, and I was being bullied a little bit at school, quite a bit at school and whatnot. And he's like, this will take you down, toughen you up, son, and walk into the boxing club, that wasn't actually boxing. It was a community centre taught by I don't know if you know what the Boys Brigade is, the BBs. They're like the Scouts type thing.
Okay.
And it was like an off. It wasn't even directly through them, but one of the guys the people who ran it used to coach a little bit of boxing and whatnot. And walked in, and all the bullies that were bullying me were at that club, so I was a wee bit tough. Eventually kind of learned to box a little bit and enjoyed it. But my main love at that point of life was playing football and being involved in that environment as well, and just all sorts of different sports. But yeah, my first taste of boxing was back then.
Nice. Yeah. So, and you said you were playing football. Were you playing football before boxing?
Yeah.
What was your football career?
I had an interesting football career, actually, I have to say. I was lucky enough to get scouted by a couple of teams, kind of be in their youth development programme in England and in Scotland. I went over for trial with a couple of clubs in Germany as well. I spent a while there, and not to kind of get too much into it, but I had a decent career at it. Got some decent opportunities, met some amazing lads. I'm a massive Glasgow Rangers fan. I know that you and I probably disagree on a few things, but it was really cool to get an opportunity to get scouted by them and go on trial. I was there for probably about 2.5 months, and I played a couple of games, as a trialist and whatnot.
Yeah.
Sadly, didn't end up signing long term with them, but I had a bit of a taste of kind of that type of thing.
Yeah.
Then ended up kind of going into the amateur and junior leagues and whatnot, and just enjoying my football and messing about and that. But yeah, football was a big part of my life.
No, that's good. It's amazing. Obviously, you obviously had a bit of skill in other sports too. Obviously, I was a bit similar, right? I used to play football, and then I kind of drifted off into boxing. But what do you find like the difference between like a team sport and then obviously boxing is very individual?
Yeah.
Did you find like, was that something that made you kind of definitely that you preferred like the individual, or you know, obviously there's pros and cons of both, but
definitely pros and cons of both. It's a good question, man. Honestly, I struggled initially with being so exposed. You know, when you're boxing, you're very much exposed. You're alone, you know, and it was, you know, a little bit frightening actually. You know, initially in the beginning, you know, when you kind of find your feet a wee bit. I love the camaraderie of team sports. I love kind of the buzz and the banter, and being a part of a unit was very, very cool. But I also really enjoyed the fact that although you are alone in the ring and whatnot, you're still part of a team in a club. And I found the culture and what you get and what you can give to in the environment of a boxing club is still very similar to a team sport, even though you're operating, you know, a solo during competition.
Yeah.
You know, it's very much like, you know, I ran track and field and whatnot and steeplechase. It's the same thing, although it's a solo sport and it is a wee bit nerve-wracking, especially at kind of higher kind of competitive levels. You're still part of a team, you know, so it is a wee bit different. I have to say that probably playing football edges out intrinsically. I had a lot more fun doing it, but it's just because it's a very different activity to boxing.
Of course, yeah. And if you could go back, however many years, I don't want to say, but if you could go back to them years and pick one to really nail that, you know, obviously similar to me, I kind of started with one sport and then switched over to another. If you could go back and start from one and just really go for one, what would you choose?
Well, I was a lot more talented at football than I was at boxing, I have to say. And if I could go back again, I would definitely put all my energy back into football again.
Yeah.
I love boxing, I love track and field, like I loved all the different sports I played, even played badminton.
Oh yeah?
So
Badminton's a good sport.
So even the secret, like honestly, like there is not anymore, yeah, no, I have told a couple of people since. But it's actually quite similar from a footwork perspective to boxing in a lot of ways, which is why I think I kind of transferred quite easily into it. But I would definitely go back and really kind of put my mind and body and soul probably into football. I know we're on a boxing podcast.
Yeah,
I love the sport.
Right, I love it.
Yeah, I love the sport. Yeah, I think definitely football. But if somebody was to say, would you change anything, I definitely wouldn't.
Yeah,
I would do it all exactly the same. I had a great time doing both.
Good man.
Yeah.
And like you say, it's all about experiences, right? So, and going back to boxing, so obviously you started your training and stuff like that. Once you like broke through and started beating up all the bullies.
I just think they just got sick of beating me up, to be honest.
Oh really? Yeah. And then so you started competing, of course, right?
Yeah.
And where were you competing out of?
So competing at different clubs in Scotland and England. You know, and then when I was kind of started really competing in earnest, you know, when I was at university at that kind of age, between kind of 19 and 22, moved down to London, you know, got back, I took a few years off, probably about 3.5, 4 years off, focused really kind of a lot on football. When I went into law school, you know, things changed a little bit. I remember having a fight at the very start, thinking this isn't going to work. I kind of need as many brain cells as I can get, plus the time commitment and whatnot. But different gyms, different coaches, up and down the UK, different experiences in a lot of different places. I find that a lot of boxing clubs, depending on which one you choose, and it's like anywhere in the world, you know, you need to choose the right environment to be in. Sadly, you know, some of the environments I was in probably weren't as conducive to producing the best out of me at that time, when I'm in that kind of late teens, early 20s, which, you know, from an athletic development perspective, is a time where you kind of go one or two ways if you're in the right environment, which is a massive part of the psychological aspect of you know, progression in sport. So without obviously getting into too many details as to where and why, you know, I was maybe unfortunate a little bit to be in environments that maybe didn't give me the right opportunities, maybe didn't make me feel as kind of safe and comfortable as I possibly wanted to, which is, you know, is a little bit unfortunate. But you know, I loved my kind of competitive days.
Yeah.
I had a bit of a patchy record. As you know, the standard and the level of participation of boxing in the UK is maybe a little bit higher than it is in Canada. So you drown out a little bit in the sea of other people. And some very talented lads have been doing it a very long time, much more consistently. And I think that was one of the things that actually got me to stop competing for a little bit, but I really missed being in the gym, and went back to start coaching at a relatively young age, which is why I've got quite a few years under my belt as a coach now, making the decision to kind of stop that competitive aspect of things to further my law career and whatnot. At the time, I just qualified as a lawyer, but still needed that. I need to be in the gym. And a big part of why I wanted to get into coaching is that I wanted to change the experiences that I had when I was competing and provide athletes the opportunities and the platforms and the manner of coaching that I didn't receive.
No, that's good. Obviously, sorry to hear the experiences, but obviously evidently that's what shaped you to be such a good coach. And like you say, you're building an experience of people that don't have to go through the challenges that you faced. So
absolutely.
That's a major thing.
Definitely. My approach to coaching is maybe a little bit different to a lot of other people. I've still got a hell of a lot to learn. I'm an all ears, all eyes, open at all times guy. Everybody's got a wee bit of ego here and there, and I think in a sport like boxing you need to retain a lot of self-confidence, which maybe kind of creeps into being a little bit egotistical about things. So maybe coming back down and dropping that and kind of really diving in and being open to things is a big part of why I really want to progress as a coach in this sport. Apart from the intrinsic aspects of it, I absolutely love dealing with people in this sport, and like I said, the experiences that I had, both positive and negative, but maybe particularly the negative experiences are things that I always thought back to when I was an athlete, thinking, God, I wish I had this as a coach. I wish I had a coach who actually remember my name. I wish I'd had a coach where I'd turn up for a fight and actually he forgot to actually register me for that day. And it was, I've had lots of different experiences like that. So my approach is very, I become very involved with my athletes. I like them to know, especially in a sport like this, that they've got the support that they need. I'm in love with the technical aspect of this game. The technical and psychological aspect of this are something that I really geek out on. I love it, and I'm always keen to learn from everybody, my peers and people that are many years ahead of me in the game.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, obviously, for you to say that stuff yourself already tells a lot about you as a coach. Do you know what I mean? And obviously, that's a lot of people, especially athletes. They need that kind of that coach, someone who's really on their side. It's all good. There's coaches out there who are just good at boxing, but they don't know the other side of people management sort of thing, right?
Well, that's what it is. This is the primary skill I think that you're going to have, apart from the technical aspect of things, is managing your people. And when you go into a club, you get lots of different characters. Lots of people get into boxing for very different reasons. But there is a consistency almost in the kind of type of character that you get that enter into boxing clubs and into those situations. But like you said, it is about people management and really being able to spot the differences in what drives people, what motivates people, what demotivates people. What are their main concerns as an athlete? How do they train? What's their cycle? Are they male, female? Where are they operating from? And that's actually something I love. I love that aspect of the game. It's something, like I said, I geek out on just a little bit, and I spend a lot of time on that aspect of things, which is maybe not noticed so much by the athlete in the amount of time that you put into this. And it's a passion, so it's never a chore. It's something I'm absolutely delighted to do. But I have found that there's definitely a positive correlation with spending the time to do that with somebody and their performance, and the success in their performance.
Yeah, that's it. You dig in and find out what it is that makes them tick, and
absolutely.
Evidently you want to get the best out of them, and obviously that's what they want as well. So
that's it.
That's good, mate.
Yeah.
And then, is there any what's the most positive experience you had from your boxing days? Is there a fight, or something you won, or just a moment of being with in the gym with the team? Is there a certain gym? Is there anything that kind of sticks out for you?
There are a couple of things. I think
rolling back the years here.
Trying to roll back the years here, Dan. Roll back the concussions. I don't know. I think the biggest thing probably from a competitive perspective, was actually when I stepped into starting to coach in Bahrain. When I went back to Bahrain, and we started a program called the Malacca Scholarship Fund, and it was initially designed to allow kids in the sport to come in and break down the barriers of entry to, from a cost perspective, from a societal perspective, and then also the sport in Bahrain wasn't very well known and wasn't very well participated in. Introducing people to something that is a combat sport, but understanding that there's a culture around, respect, and there is a level of safety protocol that if you put it in, you can mitigate a lot of the injuries and whatnot. And so through this program, actually, and this is probably the proudest thing that I've actually managed to achieve so far, which we still have in my gym, Bahrain Boxing Club, back in Bahrain. Seeing the progression of the lads that have come in, they haven't had to pay fees. We've taken them on tour. We've done charity nights, and we've seen these lads grow up into men who are very talented boxers right now, representing the country in an international level. There's a great boxing program at the moment there. There's a head coach from the UK who's doing a tremendous job building up, from a grassroots level and many other aspects. So that aspect of running a program to get lads into the gym and get them to try a new sport, but then now to see the level of success and talent is probably the biggest thing for me, from a moment of pride, looking back at that kind of level, for sure.
That's amazing. I didn't know that, so it's news to me as well. But obviously building a platform and seeing it strive, and
absolutely,
it's like,
and creating the environment. I've been in boxing gyms where there's been maybe sectarianism, there's been racism, there's been a little bit of, from a social perspective, there are differences, and one of the biggest things, Bahrain does have, not a very big issue with it, but there is like a minor sectarian issue in Bahrain, and like growing up in the west coast of Scotland, I'm very familiar with sectarianism. And the beautiful thing, I think, was that we created an environment whereby these things weren't even mentioned, weren't even talked about. Everybody came in, they just loved the sport of boxing. That the societal aspect of things was also something I was very proud about, but seeing these lads, 14, 15 and 16, who are probably now, they're 20, 21, 22, representing, Bahrain at the international level, and, is a major thing, and I'm not saying that it's all down to me and what I did, but it was definitely a springboard and launching pad for those lads, and we hope to be able to continue. COVID's made things very hard, but we're still progressing and pursuing, and it's a great pride of mine to see those lads back in the gym coaching and leading the club now, and they've kind of taken over the club, and they're the ones running it. So
it's amazing.
It's really, really cool.
It's like you've built a culture, and obviously like these guys who started and now obviously running that thing, so you're keeping that culture all the way through, and long may that continue, obviously,
Absolutely, and these are cultures and different things that I didn't have when in some of the clubs that I was in. So it was like, I wanted to introduce something that I didn't have, and again, it's on the basis of I had some wonderful coaches and some really great experiences, but the things that really actually motivated me from an intrinsic perspective, where it was to create situations for me and others based on the negative experiences that I had, and turn those into a positive eventually. And so that's the kind of biggest thing and the biggest driver as well. So long may it continue.
That's class, man. That's really nice.
I appreciate that.
And so coming over to Canada, how did that come about? And obviously I know you're into your boxing. You moved over to Canada. You moved straight to the Sunshine Coast?
Straight to the Sunshine Coast. I came over on holiday a couple of times, and went to the Sunshine Coast Boxing Club, who was founded by Mr. Rick Shannon, a wonderful gentleman, a man of great knowledge in boxing. Me and him have had, over 50 fights together in the corner, and I've learned a lot from him. He founded the Sunshine Coast Boxing Club, a few years ago, and I went in there just to train and meet everyone and whatnot, to let them know I'd be moving to Canada in about a year's time. A year goes by, I move over, and I coached a lad called Marcus Davies, who I'm sure you know Marcus very well. And we weren't actually part of boxing. The club was in both Boxing BC, and there was another organisation called ComSport back then.
I heard of that. I think that was before I came.
I think it was before your time. Only just. And Marcus asked me to be his coach for a fight, and I said absolutely. It's actually what I do. I left my law career. I was a lawyer for a few years, and I was in consultancy. and all that kind of stuff, and I left that to start a boxing club. We took him. He was my only boxer at the time. Sunshine Coast is a very small place. There's a very small pool of people anyway that are involved in any competitive sport. Boxing, I think we had 2 or 3, consistently competitive people. And the Sunshine Coast Boxing Club had a great record. It had some great boxers and great fighters come out of it. And we won the BC middleweight title, whatever it was, from Comsport. And at that point, obviously, due to the lack of progression in that organisation, I said, that boxing BC is where we should be for progression, because let's get you to nationals. That was our goal, which we managed to achieve actually. And he got to the quarterfinals of nationals, which is a big thing for Marcus. And that kick-started my boxing career here. Really, was my relationship with Marcus and Rick. And I've gone on to coach a few other fantastic people who I've become great friends with. I miss all those people very, very much. And the gym is kind of opening back up again, and they're going through their kind of cycle, which is tough anyway because of lack of people. It's been a great introduction. It's helped me really kind of meet people, and the way I've met people and the way of the friends who I love dearly now in Canada 4 years in are all actually from boxing. Almost all of them are through boxing BC. And that's another beautiful thing of this sport. It really brings people together in so many different ways.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and then so obviously in the Sunshine Coast, did you find it obviously boxing over here is obviously not that big, so I imagine even on the Sunshine Coast, it would be even harder to get people to get people in their doors and to the level of competing. How did you find it actually getting people to compete and stuff like that, and even getting bouts? Obviously you'd have to travel over here by boat and other places, so I assume it was a big challenge. Pain in the ass.
It was a pain in the ass.
It's kind of like me being in a little jersey having to fly over to England to get a fight, right?
That's it. It's exactly the same, Dan. You're right. The challenges that we faced there was, firstly lack of participation, just due to such a small population. The demographic of the Sunshine Coast is obviously there's a lot of older people, and then there's a lot of quite young kids from new kind of young families, maybe moved from the city over to Sunshine Coast and whatnot. So the biggest challenge that we faced was just the demographic just wasn't right for people to participate in the sport. And then the very few that we did have was keeping them interested and active. So the only way that we would do that was to have really committed people like Marcus and Angela Cantori, who's another really she's a great athlete, and Theo Kontakakis, and we've had a few other lads who have been quite active, and the only way was to come over for sparring, jump on the ferry, do sparring days, and then every other weekend we're over here, for fights or for sparring and whatnot, and that's the only way that we did it. And again, when I launched Lift Strength and Conditioning Centre, which was my business and my gym, and the Sunshine Coast Boxing Club was housed kind of within that. We kind of integrated the two gyms together. We launched the same program I launched in Bahrain, which is the Malacan Scholarship Fund, which was actually renamed it the Reed Pelly Scholarship Fund. It was a gent that helped us, build the gym and whatnot. Very, very good man and a good friend of mine. And through that same structure, what we managed to do was we had a free kids program. We're just trying to build the interest in the sport of boxing. We had 2 or 3 kids come in, and very talented kids, and the same thing, we're kind of building that momentum, sadly, until COVID hit. So that was the first thing, was breaking those barriers down, bringing them over and to spar, to meet other gyms in the city. And through the same structure what we adopted in Bahrain, we started to kind of build up a really nice competitive team. Through those kind of breaking down those barriers, everything else kind of got a little bit easier. But like you said, it was a daily challenge. Challenge.
That's good, mate. It's like working with what you have, and you still had lots of success. I mean, I've seen that, the names that you've just mentioned. I've seen all of them fighting. They're all amazing fighters.
Oh, thank you.
Especially Marcus, he's an animal.
He is an animal. He's a good man.
But
obviously,
I think that's amazing as well. I kind of relate, coming from obviously a small little island as well. So I understand.
Absolutely.
Now for boxing BC, you're obviously very heavily involved in that. And so how did that come about? And what's next for you in that aspect?
That's a great question. I mean, I obviously became involved in boxing BC when we brought Marcus and a few of our athletes into the association a few years ago, and I met Ryan O'Shea, who's the current president.
Mm-hmm.
A great guy. His dad's from Liverpool, he's a Scouser, and I love people from that part of the world, and we just get chatting. He actually refereed one of our fights. It was actually Marcus's fight. It was actually at Griffin's Boxing Club, and we just got chatting and whatnot. And a few months down the line, we're at nationals in Langford, and I was talking to Ryan, and he said, listen, we've got a board of directors. Maybe your legal experience and your commercial experience and whatnot would be something that we could use. There's an election coming up. You should put your name in the hat to see if you get elected, and have a little campaign and see where you go, kind of type thing. And if the membership elect you, then you get in. Mm-hmm. And I said, sure, that sounds good. Put my name in. Obviously, ran a little election campaign, called everybody up. Nobody knew who the hell I was. I was calling people up, as a Scottish guy, and they're like,
what are you trying to tell us?
Yeah, exactly. But I said, I've met you before and whatnot, and they couldn't kind of put the face to the name, to the accent, especially the a bit hard, which is fine. And I actually joined the board of directors as first director at large. Served a year as that, and then I ran for third vice president last December, and got elected. And through that aspect of things, I basically, my responsibilities are to obviously help, people like Ryan O'Shea, who does a tremendous job and carries actually a lot of the weight of activities to run this association on his shoulders. I quite frankly don't know how he does it. He loves this association and he does a great job, and we've got a great team of people, a very progressive, diverse board of directors right now. Basically the bottom line is to progress the sport of amateur boxing in British Columbia, and provide the high performance team with what they need, provide a grassroots level what they need, provide smaller communities who are maybe underrepresented in BC the opportunities to become athletes, coaches, referees and judges, maybe even on the board. And I've been involved in different things, from creating new equity policies and updating our different kind of bullying and harassment policies, for example, or create new subcommittees, for example, that we've just struck a new subcommittee for Indigenous boxers and whatnot, and we're working on an LGBTQ2 plus committee. And so my job, really my passion again, is to provide a platform, break down barriers and get people involved in the sport, even if it's just one person, success. And I've got another year as third vice president, and I'm hoping to do as much good as I can.
No, that's good, and rightfully so. You're definitely there because you should be there. So
thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, cheers, mate. I really appreciate that.
Going a little bit off of the boxing BC,
okay.
I just wanted to ask you, what do you find of? Obviously, like you say, you want a platform for everybody to get into the sport and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on these fights with the YouTubers and all that?
So I'll start off with this, and we'll take it out of boxing for a minute, right? You have to admire people who create their own opportunities in life, and you have to admire people who earn their living the way that they can. And so from that perspective, what these YouTubers are doing for themselves, and maybe as an inspiration to other people who perhaps weren't very deeply involved in a sport, be it boxing or an activity, whatever it is, you have to show there's a level of admiration there to be so enterprising, which is what it is.
Yeah.
Do I personally think it's good for the sport? I think it's a two-pronged answer. I think firstly, maybe it is a little bit good for the sport in the sense that we're going to expose ourselves to people who would probably regularly never watch boxing. Have I seen a positive correlation in Jake Paul or whoever it is kind of come in and he's having these kind of basically they're glorified white collar charity events, but they're kind of listed as a professional, a professional bout, which is fine, and we could talk about the promotions aspect of that in a second. But have I seen so many people out of a different demographic, and a different background join the sport because of them as an inspiration? I haven't personally. Maybe other people have. So from a participation perspective, I think we've probably remained kind of the same. From a viewership perspective, it's gone up. I can't say, and this isn't to be disparaging to anybody, but I can't watch the fights for a lot of different reasons. I think it's a little bit, and that brings me back to the other side of this answer, was I do think there's something wrong when you have seasoned professional boxers acting as an undercard to somebody who's practically never fought in the sport against somebody else who's never fought in the sport. I think it was Badu Jack was the undercard when one of the brothers fought some ex-NBA stuff.
Oh, right.
And when I saw that, I thought that was quite sad.
Even Tommy Fury the other day.
Even Tommy Fury is there, he was undercard when when was it Jake Paul or
Jake Paul? Yeah.
Yeah.
But he still had professional bouts, proper professional bouts.
Who, Tommy Fury?
Yeah.
He's an up and coming pro. He's actually a talented lad. I've seen him box before, and so it's a little bit sad when you see that happen. But at the end of the day, Dan, like money talks, and pro boxing is all about money.
Yeah, that's
it's
it.
about generating money.
Mm.
Promoters are going to put their money behind what they can, and during times like COVID, people are kind of pivoting and doing what they can to, obviously make money the way that they can. So again, from an enterprising perspective, there's no argument. Do I think it's necessarily going to be really positive for the sport? Not really. What happens when the Logan brothers, or the Paul brothers stop fighting, and they kind of get bored of this? Who's next? So will it necessarily drop participation in the sport? I don't think so, but maybe we'll have less kind of fights being kind of viewed pay-per-view type thing. So like ultimately, it's a bit cringy. It's a bit cringy,
No, I agree.
And what it does for me is it takes away opportunities, I think, for lads who fight at an amateur level for a number of years and then kind of scrape through the pro game at the start. And I'll tell you this: I'll show a lot more respect to either one of those lads if they get in with a pro at the same record. So I think one of them's 3-0 now. Jump in with a lad who's actually a boxer and had an amateur career. Somebody who's hungry, give them an opportunity, an unknown almost. Let's see where that goes. And that would actually make me respect them a lot more, regardless of what would happen performance-wise. Absolutely. But it kind of is glorified WWE type stuff.
That's it. I think for me as well, I completely agree with everything you said, and like you say, it brings new eyes to the sport, and then who knows, maybe them kids who are watching go, I want to do that because this guy does it. But then what happens when, and obviously like families and whatnot, but what happens when one of them lads gets hurt? Because inevitably, like from what I've seen, like I have watched a couple of the fights, never paid for them. But I've watched them, and there's a lot of clinching and hanging on for dear life, which is what I expected, right?
Absolutely.
But what happens when one of them actually gets seriously hurt, and then people are going to be like, right,
well, this is it.
It kind of goes the other way.
Exactly.
And nobody's going to want to come in because and that's what I'm worried about. That these guys think it's a game and it's all good, they're getting paid and stuff, but when you come against somebody decent and like yourself, I mean, there was a young girl who passed away recently, right? This game is not a game, right?
It's definitely not a game.
And they're very much treating it like it is, and that's what I'm worried that on the flip side, that something like that's going to happen.
Absolutely. No, look, I agree with you, and I think there's a couple of things to be said about that. I think people coming into the gym, say they get inspired by one of these lads and they go into a gym, and if it's not the environment that they're usually used to, there could be, you get hurt at some point in boxing. You get a wee bit of a concussion, you get maybe winded or whatever it is, and depending on what type of youth program you enter into and the environment, the gym that you're into, it can be very safe and you can recover and recuperate, or it can be somewhere that you might not step back into again, and that's something that we see anyway in the sport. But I think what this does is, from a societal perspective, what I'm noticing is that a lot of people, a lot of young people now especially, be it in sport or other aspects in their life, there is almost a need for kind of instant success, instant gratification. They need to kind of achieve something very quickly, otherwise they don't participate anymore. My worry is that when you get lads come in and, I don't want to say take away opportunities from other pros, but when they're given an opportunity that's perhaps a lot easier to say be, the main event on a pro card, when they've not, in my opinion, really earned it from an or sporting perspective. When you enter into the sport and you have a disappointment of, say you have your first fight and it doesn't go very well, and you kind of you feel a bit fuzzy headed from concussion and you feel embarrassed, and we've all been there. Will those people kind of see it in the same light? And like you said, on the flip side of that, if one of those lads actually, I've heard rumours that, is it Jake Paul might fight Tommy Fury?
I think so, yeah.
Right, I mean, I'd love to see that. I would actually, that's actually the time where I'll start paying for these things and actually participating and watching these things rather than kind of hearing my mates talk about it later and go, oh, okay, he won.
Yeah.
Great. You know, and you know, what happens, like you said, if he gets hurt, you know, and if something like that happens, you know, are people then going to raise their eyebrows and start demonizing the sport of boxing? Oh, it's a dangerous sport, it's brutal, it should never be allowed, and etc. and so forth. So these are things that maybe haven't been considered yet.
Yeah.
Or if they have been considered, maybe overshadowed by the fact that, again, it boils down to that one word, and that's money.
Yeah.
So
that's the problem, right?
That's the problem. So, well, I guess we just have to wait and see.
I believe that if he does fight that, I think Tommy Fury will hurt him.
Oh, absolutely.
Because he's a big
He's a big
lad.
He's a big lad.
He knows how to box.
He's
right?
a fury, and you know, for him, I don't think, you know, I've heard rumblings of these things being fixed and whatnot, and I can't really put any tune on to that, you know. But like, I don't see a lad like Tommy Fury going in and being a part of that culture. So you know, big props to the lad if he actually organises a fight with somebody like Tommy Fury. But I think he's going into different waters now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So we shall see. But ultimately, I'm not participating in that aspect of the sport right now.
Nah, that's good for you.
Yeah. Some good fights lined up though. Some you know, legit fights lined up.
No, I'm the same. I do, obviously. I completely prefer actual professional boxing, obviously.
Yeah.
But I just want to touch base and just see your thoughts on all that.
Well, maybe he might watch this podcast and maybe you'll go on to fight him.
Yeah, maybe I'll fight him. Give me a couple million.
Hell yeah, you will.
A couple million. Yeah, and then just to wrap up, mate. So, out of everything, like, you know, you're looking from competing, from starting training to competing to coaching, and now where you're at now. What's the most beautiful thing that you think about boxing, and what is it like? I think I already know the answer to this, but what's like the biggest thing that you take away from boxing, and something that you want to give and express through the sport?
Ultimately, look, you know, for me, what this sport has given me personally is the opportunity to bring people together. You know, the opportunity to have people come together in a discipline that is very challenging and you know, combative in nature, but the demands almost a level of brotherhood and self-respect and respect for others that is perhaps not shown in many other aspects of life, you know, be it sport or otherwise. So, you know, one of the biggest things is bringing people together, and the people that have come into my life through the sport has probably been the biggest thing. You know, the other aspect of things, you know, which for me, you know, what I've gained from, you know, competing, coaching, being involved in the kind of social aspect of the sport is seeing people grow and seeing their lives change, not just inside the ring from an athletic success or athletic performance perspective, seeing their lives change in other aspects and in other ways, and seeing kind of younger lads grow up into men, or, you know, seeing, you know, people like Marcus, you know, his development, you know, outside the ring, and what the sport's done for him, and that's a big one, is what the sport gives back to you, kind of outside the ring as well, and what it's given to me, you know, for me to be able to have different aspects of my life under control, and a lot of discipline and a lot of kind of self-respect. You know, boxing's given me so much, but definitely the people involved in the sport and what it can do for people and societies is the biggest kind of driver for me.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful, mate.
Thanks, man.
Right, Tariq, like I say, one of the good guys in the sport. I love everything about you, what you do. You're a very popular, friendly face around the boxing scene, and I know everybody can come and talk to you about anything, anytime. So I just want to say thank you for coming on, and obviously good luck for everything that you're doing, and
thanks, man.
Look forward to working with you as well whenever I can. So
absolute pleasure, man. Yeah, thank you very much, Dan. Yeah, appreciate that.
Nice one, brother.
All the best with the podcast. I'm loving it.
Yeah, thank you so much, man.
All right, brother.
Cheers, buddy.